Kumlen and a block Gemara. We are up to the Ayin Amid Aleph. Okay, so then after the Kohen Gadol reached those two parts of Parshas Achri, which are a little bit far from each other, the Kohen Gadol makes a speech, and he says, "I want you to know there's much more written in the Sefer Torah than what I just read," and then he reads it by heart. So what the certain part by heart is the Parshas Pinchas, which is way further. We don't want him to wait. Why do you make that speech? The Kol Kachlam, why in the world unless they make a speech? It shouldn't say that the Sefer Torah is missing that particular parsha. So therefore he tells him, I want you to know that it's in the Sefer Torah, but I am going to read it by heart. Also, the part of Parshat Bamidbar, he reads it by heart. Why do you have to read it by heart? Why don't you roll up a Sefer Torah and when you get there you'll read it? You do not roll a Sefer Torah in a tzibur, a covered tzibur. The Indian of covered tzibur, because they have to sit and wait and pause, that is not allowed, not tolerable. So even though the Rishonim ask a question, how can you read the Sefer Torah by heart? And so on and so forth, and they have to come up with answers why it's different, because maybe it's not, this is not clear, but Tzibur is a clear, but Yachid, he's not being late to anybody, just for himself. All these terutzim are because covered had Tzibur so important. And this is we looking at Rabbi Akiva, when he davened privately, he said daven Shmoneh forever, but when he davened in a minyan, he used to finish before everybody else, so nobody should have to wait for the Rav to finish. It's a lesson for all our bonim and everything else. Tichid Tzibur is. And we use the law of covered tzibur in many halachas and Shulchan Aruch. Also to the extent how old the permanent chazan should be, it has to be 8 years old, and all kinds of dinner, all to do with covered tzibur. Why women cannot lay in the Sefer Torah, even though technically they can, because covered tzibur. Many dinner are learned out from this covered tzibur. Says the Gemara. The nicey acharin, because we bring another Sefer Torah and read. We do that all the time. We bring 2 Sifrei Torah, 3 Sifrei Torah. People will assume that why you bring another Sefer Torah, maybe the first one turned out to be possible. So therefore, they bring another one. Some people argue that the Sefer Torah that they used was Moshe Rabbeinu's Sefer Torah. Then there's a whole question in Achreinim, why wasn't it? We know there was a Sefer Torah in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Why was Moshe Rabbeinu's Sefer Torah in the Beis HaKnesses rather than the Kodesh HaKadoshim? So I want to say that was the Sefer Torah they used to compare all the different Torah to see whether they're accurate. So how does it help us if it's sitting Kodesh HaKadoshim to sit in Beis HaKnesses? But Shlaki said, you know why we don't bring in a Sefer Torah? Bring in a Sefer Torah, we have to make a new bracha. It's not a bracha of Atolah, but you have to make a new bracha. And if he just says it behind, you don't have to make a new bracha. It's a continuation. So the first reason you gave that we're going to say that we bring another Torah, a begam, a fault in the first one. Say Chanukah falls out on Shabbos, and it's Chodesh. It's 3 Sifrei Torah. Mevi'in Sholosh Torah. You read 3 Sifrei Torah. The Koyin Achas ben Yonash Yom. One is the parsha, but Achas Sholosh Chodesh. One is Chodesh, but Achas Shel Chanukah. You remember the Sugi and Shabbos we had, which is first, which is second. You know, Tadir, Pesum and Issa, and all that. You know, Chodesh and Chanukah. So you have 3 Sifrei Torah.
So what's important in this case?
If you're worried about a pagam, how can you bring more Sifrei Torah?
Why don't we in our time? Because we're talking in the base of
what's the difference? Yeah, but the smarter. No. The point is that if you're saying if you bring out another sefer to read another parsha, it looks like you're casting aspersion on the first sefer.
I mean, people might think that we're casting aspersion.
The only thing is, why do you have to find a din with 3 sefer Torah? The same question would be with 2 sefer Torah. Yeah. So, but unless this is don't remember, this is the only place that we learned that you have to bring more sefer Torah. We'll see in the Gemara Megillah when it talks about whether it talks about we need 2 Sifrei Torah. But the Achad, it says Mefurish, you read 3 Sifrei Torah. Close, the Gemara answer very simple. Close a gavra, but close a Sifrei lekapagam. If every time you call up another person, you make another bracha, so they realize not because it's possible. And Lane, exactly. And we're saying the whole point is not to make a bracha, as we put in the Shlok's answer. So what's going on here? But one person reading 2 Svarim is a pagam. So the Gemara, you make 8 brachas. There's a whole discussion that Shagazari has. There's a 9th bracha, the bracha before Kriyas HaTorah. Why doesn't he mention? And he wants to say, Taka didn't make a bracha for Kriyas Torah because this is not Kriyas Torah b'tzibur. It's not a Chiyav I told you before on the tzibur. This is a Chiyav the Kohen Gadol has privately, but he cannot continue. That's why it's not an avodah, but he cannot continue doing his avodah unless he does this. So we called it yesterday tzarch avodah. So therefore, there's Taka no bicha to say it before. I'll tell you the these lashons. Just like in a bracha basic knesses, after you read the Torah. Al ha'avodah, we had this in the Mishnah. Al mechilas ha'oven kitikuna, al hamikdash b'fnei atzah. Make a bracha. The Mishnah should continue. Al kohenim b'fnei atzah. Bracha the kohenim they chose them. Al Yisrael b'fnei atzah. Bracha the Yisrael they were chosen. Al shad hatfila and the rest of davening. Tell them what we learned. Shad hatfila the rest of davening. Rina tchina bakasha v'fnecha al amchi Yisrael davening asking for Klal Yisrael. They need to be helped. And you finish off with Shemeh Tefillah. This is interesting. Afterwards, every single person brings a Sefer Torah from his house. Every person on Yom Kippur will bring their own personal Sefer Torah to show its appearance to the public. What in the world is going on here? So Rashi says an interesting thing. And I remember, and for life of me, I cannot remember where. Achrayim go to town on this Rashi. I think it's above a comment on Tesla Beis when we talk about Hidden Mitzvah, or it's a Sukkah Daf Lamed in the early Lamas when we talk about Hidden Mitzvah. Look at Rashi says, we'll come back to this when we get there. Rashi says, Lahares Chazusa Lerabim, says Rashi. Lahares Noyesho Sefer Torah. You want to show off the beauty of your Sefer Torah, V'tif Eres Ba'aleh, and how wonderful the owners of the Sefer Torah are. They put in this money, Shetorach Lehisnoy the Mitzvah. It is to show off. What's the idea of showing off your hidden mitzvah? What is it all about? Shenemar says, Zeh Keli Manveyu. There's an Indian of Zeh Keli Manveyu, which is he snarl upon the mitzvahs, he should beautify the mitzvahs. Lulav no, Sefer Torah no, and what should Sefer Torah no? Klaf no, not just the writing, that the parchment should be nice, but no, use a nice, good quality ink, the lavler umen, use a good sefer, has a mumche, what's this all about? To show off each one. So first of all, you see, everyone has their own Sefer Torah. So everyone knows, it seems like everyone knows they just kind of mitzvah to see the Sefer Torah. Then there's an inyan, not just to be, the inyan is to show off your hidden mitzvah. It seems to be the antithesis of everything that Chassidus stands for. Right? We take the most beautiful essay, but put it in a plain white box, paper box. We don't have a beautiful silver thing adorning it in the Zevaita. Here is an inyan to show off your name mitzvah. And interesting, actually, they all brought it in before Yom Kippur. Why did they bring it in Yom Kippur? Because they never had an aid of Yerushalayim. And this is what I told you once. The Ben Ephraim says that in Yerushalayim they didn't have an aid. They never had an aid. And the reason they didn't make an aid, remember we had in Baba Beit there in Il Mole, if they would have closed the doors, it would be all right. So why Taka did they close doors? And we learned that Pesach they had to bring it down, fell out on the Shabbos. They had to bring the korban psachim there right before Pesach, before Shabbos. Why? The Ben Ephraim says because since Klal Yisrael, everybody comes to Yerushalayim. If they see that everybody carries there on Shabbos, they don't realize that it's an Eidim, and they'll go home and they'll continue carrying. So there's a Gzeda that you don't make an Eidim in a city where, that all the frum people are and the not so frum is somewhere else. Which Moshe Feinstein uses all the time as why he's against all these Eidim around the world. But this Rashi needs an explanation. The Yaakov Endler says they actually brought it on Shabbos. It seems to say that he learned that there was an Eidim in Yerushalayim. But or there's a mandam that says, remember, Ein Eida V'Hoit Soli and Kippurim, Rafram. Anyhow, I remember the Nachmas coming back to me, even the Mishnah Berurah and Bir Halacha on this Rashi. Okay. That doesn't help us on Rashi. I don't remember much else. Remember what Rashi says here, the inyan of showing off your hidden mitzvah. And what exactly were they reading? This mitzvah of reading of Achrei, Pasha Achrei, is only on the Kohen Gadol. What were they all reading? The Kohen Gadol's Pasha. Anyway, the Gemara says, right, Kohen Gadol. If you see the Kohen Gadol, you cannot see the burning of the chattas and the goat. Because you're not allowed to. And this is the Raya the Shagizaya brings. The Mishnah should have said, you should go with the Kohen Gadol because you have to clear. The fact that nowhere does it say the mission you have to hit a kriya. It says if you want to go there, go there. But the only thing not next to each other is that there's no mitzvah kriya. It's a mitzvah kriya. Others want to say lav dafka. There's a mitzvah kriya that has to be read. There's a tesis of sukkah of the and the base of angle and all the other ones learned the chapter tesis. Is the mitzvah kriya satayda for every person to hear kriya satayda, and the person who's reading the Torah in the shul is being mighty everybody, or there's a mitzvah that every minyan there has to be a Torah read. But there's no personal chiv on every person there to hear kriya satayda. Why the Gemara in Bracha says that Sheish is not turn around, he's blind, but everybody else should sit and listen, is only because of bizayin Torah. Torah being read, you're not even bothering to listen, but not because we have a mitzvah to listen. So, so it could be over here also. It could be there's a mitzvah kriya Torah that has to be read, but you don't have to necessarily hear it. So the information has to be read. You can go to watch, witness what happened to the Sayyid and the Porter. Then you want to pshita, why not? Pshita. But you have to stay here for his Torah. We'll go there. Name Mao. There was like mitzvah. Since this, you're standing in the Mishkan or the base of Mikdash, and you want to witness what's going on. So that's the mitzvah you should be. I would have thought that you should remain here. My mitzvah. Why would you think it's a mitzvah? But stand and watch what the Kohen God was doing, observing. What kind of mitzvah is that? Yes, you would think my being here adds to the quality of the mitzvah the Kohen God was doing, because the more people that are here, the more chashuv the mitzvah is, and then it's always a mitzvah. Kamash Malan, that's not considered mavin al mitzvahs, because the point you're not doing it. You just even though Barav Am is an Indian, but it's not a chsaron if you're not there. If you're there, you're complementing the mitzvah, but if you're not there, it's not a chsaron. So therefore, there's no Indian ein mavin al mitzvah. So instance is an Indian in making a crowd. An Indian.
Everybody has the dominant, so it's not even one of them is saying the broch. Whereas here, not everyone is doing the avoidance. The Kohen is doing it because his soul can't do it.
Rav Hamad Melech is better to daven with a shul of 100 people than daven with a shul of 10 people. Because the Rav Am had a svarach as the Rivosh, famous shul of the Rivosh, big shul versus small shuls. Rav Am had a Melech. Or Rav Am had a Melech is, should you make kiddush each one separately, or should you have one person in kiddush being made to everybody in the house? In Simon Gimel. What's better? But Rav Am says it's better that one person makes kiddush and makes everybody. We're all included. And Mitzvah Yisrael Shluchis says it's better that everyone does their own kiddush. Our middle Obama should go make our own kiddush. But the literature Island, they won't. They will have one person making for everybody. I don't know why the whole world says B'Rav Am had a smell, but the pasuk actually says B'Rav Am had a smell. Anyway,
it's fascinating that on Shalosh Regalim it's a mitzvah to go to the base of Mikdash. And Yom Kippur we see here it's not, and yet the tradition is here today at Shul. It's exactly the opposite.
Yeah, ironic.
Yeah,
ironic. And what's the answer?
I was hoping you could tell me.
The problem is that only 2 days a year they go to Shul Shani and Kippur. So they think that we do this every Shabbos, daven 6-7 hours a day. That's why they don't come on Shabbos and Yom Tov. If they would come, on Shavuos and something like that, maybe they'll come more often. But Gary, you're right.
No, because the thing is that Shalosh Regalim is a more happens more often.
3 times a year versus
it's less rare. It's less rare. You got the first day and second day, so that's it, whatever. But this is mamish 1 day a year and that's it.
I've told Rav just said it says in Chumash in Pashim Spots, if he hits somebody a slave and doesn't know what happens, to die straight away, he stands up. So the pasuk Achim Yema Yamayim Lo Yamad, a day or two, doesn't stand up. Lo Yukam Kikaspayu. It says there, Yukam Kikaspayu. So he said types of this. Achim Yem, the guy comes to shul 1 day a year. Or Yamayim, or 2 days a year. Those he comes on Yom Kippur only, or maybe he comes also to Rosh Hashanah 2 days, then Yom Kippur. Yamad, he stands and he davens away. Lo Yukam, not one thing you daven for will be Mekuyim. Kikaspayu. The only reason why you're coming is because you think you need Parnasa, and 2 days a year will take care of your Parnasa. You got to come on Yom Tov and on Shabbos and the rest of the year as well. Anyway, interesting point. Now the Mishnah continues. There are a number of kabbanas that are brought on Yom Kippur, a total of 15 or 16, including all the normal ones. So you have the Tamash Shachar, Tamash Ben Abayim, you have the par, the bull of the Kohen Gadol and his ram, and then you have the goat that you bring for Klal Yisrael, the Chatas. We don't include the Hazaza one, and then you bring another seed, and then you bring the 7 sheep, and you bring a par and an aisle for your Musaf, and all that equals to 15 or 16. We'll see more later an argument whether that was 1 aisle or 2 aisles. Big dick. Remember we had yesterday, we learned that the Kohen Gadol, it's up to him whether he still continues wearing his Kohen's clothes to read the Parsha, or he changes already before he does he just wears a shirt. Now, you remember we had a big machlek in the beginning of the Masechta when the Kohen Gadol washes hands. And we had three opinions there. But we say that we wash the hands before he takes off his first clothes. And then the Rabbanan say he washes hands after he puts on the new clothes. So if he is still wearing his first linen clothes, he hasn't washed his hands at all yet. So even the big boots kaida, if he's reading the kriya while still wearing his clothes of linen, then he has to go ahead first before he removes his clothing and wash his hands. Pashat, he takes off the clothes, the other, but he goes to mikveh. Oh, he goes over the stopping, he wipes himself. Maybe he does all the bring him his other clothes. But love, she puts him on the kid, and then he washes his hands from the kier. The yotzi goes out. Remember, you wash your hands twice. For every tefillah, there's 5 tefillahs and 10 washings. So according to this Mishnah here, we follow the opinion that says you wash your hands before you take off your clothes, and then you wash your hands after you put them on. Not like others who say you wash your hands after you remove your clothes, and you wash your hands either before you put them on, like one opinion, or you wash your hands after you put them on. The Yotzi goes out, but us as Eloi, now he goes ahead and he does his activity, which is his ram, best Ela and the ram of the people. The Eishi, this is the Musaf. Eishivas Kavasim, Tmimim B'nai Shana, and he does the 7 sheep that are whole, that are year old. No, what you do now the Musaf. You do another Musaf. You did your other. We're going in sequence here. You did your other order, your other activities already. You did the sprinkling of blood and everything else. You did the Geidel, and now you're going ahead and you're doing the Musaf. So you have to Kisha Taita. You go ahead and you do your Musaf. Rabbi Akiva says no. They did the Musaf in the morning. The first activity they did the Musaf, and we'll see later how even how we break up the 7 kabbanas and the part. What do you call it? And the power of the oila, which is also of the Musaf. We'll see in the Gemara later whether the power of oila goes together, whether Akiva with the Tamid Shachar or goes with the Fasoid Hanasa Bechutz, which is the Seir Chatas, which is done on the outside. It should be done later in the afternoon after they came to Shabbat. We're not sure if the power of oila goes with the first part, which is the Tamid Shachar, it goes with the second part, Tamid Shabbat.
In the normal Shabbos, normally Yom Tov, the Musaf is done before Chatzos, or the Musaf is done after Chatzos?
We had after 4 hours, after 11 o'clock.
After 11 o'clock. It's still before Chatzos.
If you wash your hands and your feet, you pasha, after Chatzos is mincha already. And then we have the whole shaila. If it comes man mincha, what do you do first? Mincha musaf. You wash your hands and feet, and that's what it says on your kippur. Make sure you start musaf before Chatzos. For that reason. But Kiddush Yoda V'Ragla, you wash your hands and feet, he washes and feet. The Posha, he script the Yoda, but now we're going to kill the rest of the day. The Yoda, he went to mikveh. All of a sudden, up and watched from the love the promised new clothes. He went back to his linen clothes. What avoid does he do now? He did everything. What's left to do? The love Ashvik Kiddush Yoda V'Ragla, the Nichnes Lahaich, the Kaps and Macht. If you remember in the Sechta, they deliberately pushed this activity later, so we have a Gdesa Kosa, we need 5 trillas. So therefore, we took this activity, but you could have done when he left after he did the sprinkling. You could have taken the shovel out and the spoon out, the ladle out. No, make a whole activity to get dressed, so you can go in just to take it out to get the extra trillas. And he washes his hands again. All of them is stopping. They brought him his golden clothes. The lavash we finished. That's it. He went 5 mikvahs. The nichnes lahaktik teirish ben abayim hatas. He finished off the activities of the normal day, wearing his golden clothes, and there we go. The kiddush of Rago Pasha. He went really big after, and now he put on his own clothes. He finished. The lavash he got dressed normally. Umalabi noisad base. He doesn't go home afterwards saying kippur on his own. He has a whole escort. The whole entourage. The yom tov haya oisel le'ohavav. We make a Yom Tov. That's what Rabbi says. We should make it Ksas Yom Tov Mitzvah Yom Kippur, and we should have it called Yom Tov. The Shah Shiyatz B'Shal. Okay, what was the Yom Tov? The fact that he came out alive, whole, complete from the Kodesh. That was the Yom Tov. Interesting. It doesn't say the Yom Tov was that the spring became white and we were in his chapter. The fact that Kohen Gadol remained alive is already a Yom Tov. It means he was worthy of his position. That's what we said before. That Kohen Gadol didn't make it. But the first thing is when Rabbi Kiva said that you do this. What do you call it? The par ha'oila. Does he go with the Tamid Shachar? Does he go with the Tamid Shabbat Abayim? Heichi kama. Im Tamid Shachar came in, par ha'oila v'soy nasa b'chutz im Tamid Shabbat Abayim. The par ha'oila, does that refer to the next part? That's in the afternoon. Or Yom Hachi kama. Im Tamid Shachar came in. No, the par ha'oila went with the Tamid Shachar. Par ha'oila badayu together. The soy nasa b'chutz im Tamid Shabbat Abayim. Only the soy that was outside, which is the musaf, is on the outside. Sorry.
This say doesn't follow the say of Rabbi Shaul.
Yeah, we know that.
All these other things comes towards the end. There's a lot of stuff you put Rabbi Shaul, which is here.
We're saying not going to nitty gritty now with other activities. Okay, but still, furthermore, we mentioned traders here. We mentioned lighting the candles.
Yeah, but this is thing like the last activity.
Yeah.
Whereas according to Abashol, you have the Shofin, you have Bazichin, and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing more further. But still, another question. Para oil going to Rabbi Lezer. The Shai doesn't mention it. Aimad Ovaslu. When does he do the para oil? But still, furthermore, because by him it was the third tefillah. According to Rabbi Lezer, the third tefillah. According to Rabbi Akiva, was either the first tefillah or the fifth tefillah. According to Rabbi Lezer, the third tefillah. When does he do the para? But still, furthermore, Rabbi Akiva, a muri chatas aimas Ovaslu. According to Rabbi Akiva, the fats of the karma chatas that they trained on one put in the mizbeach. When was that done? Omar Rava says, "Lo mishkachas lo." We don't find it in our Mishnah, you're right, with the concept from the way our Mishnah structures the events of the day. Ella oile Rabbi Lezer. If you want to know what Rabbi Lezer did, follow what Rabbi Shmuel said. We'll soon see what he said. Other Rabbi Kiva, you want to know what Rabbi Kiva did, follow the Tesefta. There explains what they did. Shmuel learned. Rabbi Lezer says, Yotza, this is what happened. He went out, but also Ela, he did his own ram. He did his own ram first, the Ela. He did his own ram. He did the ram of the people, and that's when you put in the Emure Chatas. He did the fats of the Chatas. But what about the para oil? When did you do that? When para oil was part of the musaf, so the shivas klosim and the 7 sheep, the soy and nasa b'chutz, and the other karbachatas, the soy went. That was done on the altar mizbeach in Tomid Shabeina Baim. It was done in Tomid Shabeina Baim. Yeah. Rabbi Kiva Tesefta. What's the story there? The par oil and the ship is crossing in Thomas Shachir. So by Kiva, the par oil was done in the morning. It's in the passing Mulvad oil in addition to the oil sabaykin. Ashel oil satamid. That was a tamid. And so on, in other words, do all this masafim, which means it sounds like you did it right afterwards. It's part of the first tefillah. You did it together after Thomas Shachir. You probably did the musaf. Then you do the Yom Kippur activities. The achikach, and afterwards, so you and later on you do the chatas that does on the outside. It says, he says the pasuk, eat easy echad. It says chatas muvat chatas akipurim. After you do the chatas akipurim, you do the soy and nasa b'chutz is also chatas. Muvat chatas akipurim. And then the achikach, and afterwards, so this is all done in the third tefillah. But and afterwards, a loy ve'elam. Afterwards, he does his own ram and he does the ale of the people. And then afterwards, a mure chatas. That's where he does the fats. So he does after the muslim, he does the fats. There's a big machlekes how to learn Shabbat, but we'll wait. Other than showing one very different. Like and afterwards, Tomit Sheben Abayim. My time with the Rabbi Lezer. Let's go through this one. What's the Rabbi Lezer? Ovi, he holds. It says, Ovid Bereisha the Torah is kind. He said you follow the Torah exactly the way the Torah says. First, you do Pasha Vayikra. The musaf is nothing to do with Vayikra. Is the activities of Yom Kippur. The carbon musaf is like any other Yom Tov, which is in Chumash body in Pasha Pinchas. So first you do what it says in Nacharei Meis, and only afterwards you do what it says in Bamidbar. So musaf goes later. Rabbi Kiva. So no, but the Kohen Rabbi Eloi and Elam, that's all done right in the beginning, because that's Vayikra that comes first, and the Emuri Chatas also comes right after his activities, and the Musaf comes later.
That's the thing that you had every day. You had 7 days, you had all these coffers. At what point in time in the avoided do they come in?
Okay. I guess we'll see the sukkah.
Yeah.
That's Akiva time. He said very simple. In addition to the Eilas HaBoker, you also do the Musaf. Sounds like you do by the first tefillah. It says clearly you don't do the Musafin later in the afternoon. You do Musafin right there with the first tefillah. Rabbi Lezer, what does he do? What does he do with pasuk besides the chatas kepurim? So it sounds like the chatas of the soyer hachitza should be done first thing in the morning, not the way he learns much later. No, he learns that the chatas of the musaf, like it's Chumash Bamidbar, that goes much later. First, the Kohen Gadol does no chatzos. But from the pasuk here, it sounds like Mavad and Chul. It sounds like Mavad Chatzah Kipurim. Sounds like that the Chatzah Kipurim is done first, and then you add your own thing. Says the Gemara, my Ovidle, what do you do with that? So regarding Mavad Eilus Bother, that was Yom Kippur. Was talking about a Yom Stam Yom Tovim, and therefore, Yom Kippur might be different. But it says by Yom Kippur Guf it says Mavad Eilus what do you call it? Mavad Chatas HaKippurim. And it talks about Yom Kippur there. It says there's one goat lechatas. This is in addition to the Chatas HaKippurim and the Eilis HaTamid Chasnas came. So the seed is in Chatas has to be done in the morning. So what does he do with it? Well, he said nothing to do with the time. There's nothing to do with timing. There's to do with Amash Zem Mechaper Zem Mechaper. They're both Mechaper and Tumas Mikdash. Remember, we had one of them in the Mechaper that you didn't know you were tummy and you found it afterwards. The other Mechaper that you knew you were tummy and you forgot and you never remembered. So they will be held to punishment and suspense until one day you remember and you bring your ashram for going in. So that's similar.
But isn't it the Seir that you have on every Shalosh Regalim? Each one of these is to the.
We're looking more sure, but each one's coming to Mechaper. But Yom Kippur with Mechaper, we learned, is for Tumas Migdash, Kedoshav, and yeah, and the Chatzas HaPnim is if you never that you knew you were tummy and didn't remember afterwards. And this Chatzas here Chitzon was that you did not know you were tummy, but you knew afterwards. Yeah, but there has to be a Yediyah somewhere. If there's no Yediyah at all, not here, not there, so that's what's not what you keep it for. So anyway, right? Rabbi Yehuda says Mishmoi. Rabbi Yehuda says his name Rabbi Kiva. Now here we have a machlekes within Rabbi Kiva itself. So what did Rabbi Kiva say? The 7 sheep in the pot and all that you bring with the Thomas Shachar. So he says that's a pasha. Rabbi Yehuda says Mishmoi in the name of Rabbi Kiva. Echad karev in Thomas Shachar. V'shishim Thomas Shadabai. He breaks it up. One of the 7 you do with the sheep, you do with the shachar, and the other 6 you do in the ben abayim. Rabbi Elazar Shimon agrees in principle, but the other way around. Mishmai shisha kreivin tam shachar. No, 6 you do in the first thing in the morning, and the echad is abayim. You spread it out, and the other one you do late in the afternoon. What? First of all, both of them they agree that you split it up. And the shaila is which way. So first of all, why are you splitting it up? The Gemara today, it says in one pasuk, it says muvad oilas habayker. In addition to the Eilis HaBoker that you do in the morning, so that pasuk sounds like when you do the Musafim straight away in the morning. Uksiv, another pasuk says that after the Kohen Gadol will wash his hands and everything else, he puts on his new clothes. The Yotza, he goes out. The Osa Es Oilasa, he does his Oila, and so on and so forth. So therefore, it sounds like that he does it, and afterwards you do your Avodah Sayeb. Yeah, it says Osa Oilasa Hichach. You do some before you do your Avodah Yom Kippur, you do some after your Avodah Kippur. So my Kippur is going to look like this. He says one you do in the morning, because it says Mavad Eilas HaBoker, which is Lashon Yachin Mavad. In addition to the Eilas HaBoker, you do something else. So you bring one tamid then. Then you do your Avodah Yom Kippur, and since that's the main activity, we don't want you to do the rest of the Muslim. We're going to break it up. We want you to only do one in the morning, so that you have all your strength to do the main avodah of Yom Kippur, which is Rosh Avodah. And because if you're going to make him do all the 7 sheep, one and then another 6 afterwards, there's going to be a problem that the Kohen Gadol won't have the strength to do the avodah Yom Kippur. And that's more important. Even the aschil of a shisha, you started do the bulk. The Dilma Pasha, I say maybe he'll be Pasheya and he won't do the last one. And you tell me that what? Maybe he's maybe Pasheya is too many to do. 6 to do afterwards, he won't do it. So therefore, we want him to do 6 straight away. I now will be weak. You're arguing and you won't do the avodah Yom Kippur. So the Gabi avodah sayim, this concern that you have that if you make him do the bulk of the sheep first, he's not going to have the strength and the vigor to do the avodah Yom Kippur. But not worry, because Zadizu, of course, he's excited. He'll do it. The whole thing, he's preparing himself for avodah Yom Kippur. So of course he will do it, and he will make sure he has. And actually, use the expression "machlud kayach." He'll be re-energized to make sure that he does it. And because of the psukim, you have to do a little bit afterwards as well. So therefore, we do 6 in the beginning because we're scared. We're more worried about the daily activity or the normal Shabbos Yom Tov activity than we're worried about the Yom Kippur activity. So we do the bulk before, and the one whole very do the end. The Kulamiyas Chad Ayelu. Everyone agrees, however, whether you follow Rabbi Lezer or Kiva, he follows only one ayil. He does for the tzibur. We said Eila Am. But what about the Chubad Midbar? There's another ayil. In Chubad Midbar also mentioned an ayil together with the Safim. So why is not mentioned in the mission at all? Is it taka that the ayil that we say Adam brings is exactly the same ayil that's mentioned in Chubad Midbar from the Musafim, and that's where we talk about ayil, or is it specific ayil? Yeah, exactly, and that's why the mission only mentions one ayil. And maybe that's, or do we say that two ayil? There's one ayil that Adam brings especially from Yom Kippur, and then there's the ayil you bring every Yom Tov, which is part of Moses. What's that? Must be that our Mishnah hosts come out. Can that be like there's only one ayil? The Tanya we learned. That ayil that Aaron Kain has to bring is actually the same ayil we're talking about in Chumash Bamidbar. The ayil, two separate ayil. My time of the Rebbe. Why does Rebbe hold only one? The Chesiv, it says echad. It says in the pasuk ayil echad. No, echad means only one. But Rabbi Elazar Shimon, he says my echad. We already had before. Miyuchid shebe'edrei. Echad means the best in your flock. Oh, and within all the kabbanas, this should be the mamish, the best one. Rebbe, how does he know? We have a pasuk generally, that when you give a voluntary carbon, you should always, or you make a net, they should always be the best. So it's in all kabbanas, nothing to do with Dafka Yom Kippur. Shimon, I need 2 drushes. I need to tell me generally. In fact, from here we learn out why it says over here, taka that all kabbanas you have to choose the best. But we learn out from here. So what I need 2 lemudim, mivchen derecha and ayil echa miyuchid shebedroi. So he says we need chad min davar v'chad b'chayv. Oh, the way around. If you remember the Gemara Rashi, they said, explain to us that sometimes you would think if you're volunteering a carbon, if you're not going to do something nice, then why bother doing it? But if you have to, Abiyah did it, you can't have kindness, or the other way around. If you volunteer a carbon, you don't have to do it at all. No matter what he does, it's good enough. But if you're a chayv, show that you have some enthusiasm. Put some money into it, invest some time and effort. But if you need a little bit for both. Look, we learned he has to watch his hands and feet every time. The Adam comes to the Mayid, and he goes to the Mayid, takes off his linen clothes. Every time he goes in and he puts it there, he puts the clothes there. Why is he coming in a third? He's coming in a second time to the Kodesh Kedoshim. What for? The Hoyt is a capital master. There's only one activity. He changed the whole rigmarole, changing his clothes and going to mikvah as invited, and two times into linen and go back to gold is purely so he can walk in the Kodesh Kedoshim to remove his ladle and his shovel. Why? Never say that everything's written in order. Chutz pasuk there. This pasuk is totally out of order. No, my time. Why did he have to bother going in again? He could have taken it out as he walked out of Kodesh Kedoshim. He could have taken it with him in the first place. The Gemiri, we have a rule. We had before Chamesh Chulas. We have Allah that on Yom Kippur the Kohen Gadol has to go through 5 mikvahs v'asori kedushin. Every time there's a mikvah, changing clothes, there's a kiddush haragim before and a kiddush haragim afterwards. Is asori kedushin. Toiv Kohen Gadol mekadosh baby he has to go to mikvah and has to mekadosh that day. Beyond the Kisidra, and if you're gonna follow Kisidra, which is that's right after he does the dictators, it says he takes her out, that he takes out the macht and everything else. He's where's the extra activity that he has to change clothes again? We don't have it. Therefore, we deliberately took this pasuk out of sequence and we pushed it off the later a little bit later, so you have to change clothes again. So we earned an extra mikveh and an extra 2 times washing hands. So we'll continue tomorrow and continue whether could have thought of another activity that he could have done to increase his work. Okay.